Today, the opening talk will be given by Dave Fitzpatrick. Dave has been practicing with PZC since 2016. He took his 5 precepts in 2022 and 10 precepts to become a Dharma Teacher in training in 2024. David is an embedded software engineer in Rhode Island. He has 2 grown children and lives with his wife Sharon in Fall River, Massachusetts. And then bear with me while I find the bio for Zen Master Dae Kwang. Here we go. Zen Master Dae Kwang has been a monk since 1987 and received transmission in 1996. He has traveled widely, leading retreats throughout North America, Europe, and Asia, including 90-day retreats in Korea. His interests include meditation practices common to Christians and Buddhists. And he currently resides right here at Providence Zen Center.
So I was asked if I could give the talk today on Tuesday, and I offered to revisit a talk that I gave during the Zen in Motion retreat last Saturday. So just to show of hands, who was there last Saturday? A couple few. All right, cool. So hopefully this upcycle will still be useful to us. So today I would like to talk about the mechanics of how I meditate, in particular how I meditated today, specifically about today. And then I will talk a bit about how I used to meditate and all the problems that I had with that. And then I'm going to talk a bit about why I keep on doing it. Okay? So for how I meditated today, it might be helpful if you kind of treat this like a guided meditation and kind of follow along with me as I do this, okay, just as an exercise. Some of you may have noticed the very first thing I did when I came in the room is I cherry-picked the finest cushions our school has to offer, okay? And then I take my seat and I get myself in a nice, stable position. And I sit upright, and I cast my eyes down at the floor. Then I put my hands in the cosmic mudra, and my thumbs are touching in an oh so particular way. Not too hard, not too soft, just touching. And then I put those thumbs right in front of my navel, which is right in front of my center. And then I start taking these nice, relaxing breaths down into my center. And then as I do that, I can feel the energy in my face, and my jaw, my neck, and my chest. I can feel that energy just drop. And it settles down into my center to join my breath, my mudra. And then I add our mantra on top of it. Clear mind, clear mind, clear mind. Don't know. And when I do it in this very particular way, I have a vague sense of my body, my posture, my breath, my energy, my mantra. And then when I drift away from the intention of doing it the way I described, perhaps I notice my thumbs droop or part or push. Today I was noticing they were pushing kind of hard together. Or my eyes close. That's pretty common as I relax. I simply, or of course the mind drifts, I simply begin again, and I mean that literally. I'm aware that I'm seated in a nice stable position. I'm upright but not rigid. My eyes are down at the floor. Nice, relaxing breaths. And then I add the mantra on top. Clear mind, clear mind, clear mind. Don't know. And I repeat this over and over and over again. Repeat it today, over and over and over again. And then during the walking meditation, instead of being in a stable position, I was aware of my feet. in each step. And I begin again every time I get pulled away. Okay. So, come on back, everybody. I hope that sounded ridiculously familiar to everybody. I hope everybody knows exactly what I was talking about. And I would like to now confess that is not what I did for way too many years during the beginning of my practice. When I first started practicing, and I got the intro, and this idea of staring at the floor, sitting for 25 minutes in this rigid position, reciting a mantra that seemed kind of silly at the time, it just seemed impossible. It's just too hard. So I didn't do it. Instead, I did everything but what I was told to do. I daydreamed, I fantasized, I visualized, I projected, I pondered philosophy and psychology and religion and Zen. Zen, the longer you come here, the more words and phrases you get in your head to think about, clear mind, don't know, and all that. And a whole long list of them. And I would sit here and I would just turn my head over and try to occupy myself with anything I could grasp onto. And in particular with the Zen stuff, I imagine that I may have dreamed up and rehearsed and then discarded possibly hundreds of Dharma talks. You get through it all at the end, you're like, no, that's terrible. You pitch it. Some other things I did to occupy my mind during the sits was to count my breaths, every breath, not just the 1 to 10 cycle, but every single breath. If I knew how many breaths I took during the given sit, I could use that count to mark time. And if I can mark time, I know how much time is left. And there's something about knowing how much time is left in a sit that just makes it easier to endure. Can't explain it. And I'm not alone in this, because I've heard people talk about it. You can tell by the way people ask questions about meditation. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Also, I've seen people peeking at the clocks or looking at their watch, or sometimes you'll see somebody also subtly tap their phone, check the time. One person told me a story about their watch. They have a watch with a silent alarm that's totally imperceptible to anybody except the wearer of the watch. And at the beginning of the sit, they would set it to a 5-minute recurring alarm. So they didn't sit for 25. They sat for 5-minute increments. 20, 15, 10, 5, 0, 0. HDT's asleep. Oh, there it is. And all of that thinking, desires, suffering, scheming, planning was all an attempt to endure the sit, just to get your ass through it, anything it took. And not only was I not following the instructions, I was far, far, far away from everything that our school is trying to teach us. I saw a blurb go by the other day from Zen Master Bobby Rhodes, and she said Zen is all about being at peace with this experience. And there's a lot of variations to that saying. Zen's all about accepting our experience without having desires arising for it to be anything other than the experience. Or words like content or tranquil with this experience. Again, always without desires arising. And that sounds lovely, doesn't it? Being at peace. However, when you are perhaps staring down the barrel of old age, sickness, death, great losses in your life, whatever they might be, or perhaps your experience is PTSD or your experience is suffering, The idea of being at peace with that, without desires arising for it to be anything else, it sounds ridiculous or perhaps impossible. When I think about, PTSD or depression, forcing yourself trying to be at peace with it, that sounds like the wrong advice. I'm not a therapist, so I don't know, but it feels like the wrong thing to try to do. So this idea of being at peace, I wanted to mention the four great vows, and in particular, the wording of the four great vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. All four of them are worded in a way that makes them impossible, or points out that they're impossible. And I think the lesson there is that this is not an objective. These vows are not an objective. They're an orientation. They're a direction. We set our intention towards them, and then how do we save all beings? One at a time. And that's just our intentions. And I think this idea of being at peace is very, very similar to that. It can be used as an intention. And how wonderful is it that we happen to have a practice that gives us all sorts of challenges to practice being at peace without taking on the big ones of old age, sickness, and death and whatnot. So here, I mentioned, trying to scheme ways to get through the sits. Today, I did it a little bit differently, and I've been doing it this way for a bit now. When I was talking about how I sat today, I talked about when you settle into the meditation, I have this vague intention of the posture, the body, the breath, the mind. Well, now I have an intention on top of that to be at peace with the practice. So that when I'm sitting, if the thumbs drop or the eyes close, or I have a desire for the experience to be anything other than it is, once again, I begin again, top down. I'm sitting, I'm upright, eyes are open, I'm breathing, I feel the energy drop, add the mantra. And that vague sense of that desire, it just evaporates, it unravels, and it goes away. And it leaves me at peace, with no desires for this experience to be anything other than it is. And today, when I did that, there was one period where I did it, this little smirk appeared, a little smile. And for just the briefest of moments, nice. Then I heard somebody's tummy rumbling. So, yours? Yeah, mine too. Mine. Did everybody hear that? There were a lot of stomachs today. So that's the how I do it now versus the how I used to do it. And somebody asked me a day or two ago, given all the troubles I've had with practice, and I've been vocal about it, I've shared this a number of times with a lot of people. They asked, how come I keep doing it? How come I keep coming back? And in trying to think of an answer to that, two things appeared. The first one is something that Dennis Durmeyer has said over and over and over again. And the first time I heard it, I locked eyes with him and I was like, yeah, that. I've done a fair number of practices with a fair number of groups, online and local. And for me, this is the right practice. This is the one that works for me. So that keeps me coming back. The other thing that keeps me coming back is, let me restate that. The thing that occurred to me while I was pondering this idea was a story of one of our Zen stories. We have this collection of Zen stories that pop up often. And this one is the story of the thief running from the mob. So this thief is running, the mob's chasing her. She knows she's about to get caught. She goes by a little cave and she has this bright idea. She rolls in the dirt, she takes a seat, and this is kind of funny. At least when I was thinking about this, it occurred to me. When she took her seat, I wonder if she got a stable position. She was upright. She had her eyes down at the floor. She had her hands in the mudra. And she had a nice calming breath going. I wonder if she looked like that. And then, of course, the mob shows up, and they ask her, have you seen this person that we're seeking? And she comes up with this pithy answer. She says, rather than seeking somebody else, you should be seeking your true self. And that was a big mistake. Half the crowd went, oh, whack job, and they kept looking. The other half of the crowd, or at least a few of them, decided, wow, good teacher. So they took a seat with her, and now she's trapped. And the story goes on to say that, she got better and better at these teachings. She gathered more and more students and was never left alone again till her dying days. And so I suppose in a way, my continued practice is faking it. Just doing my best, trying to do the practice over and over and over again. Okay? Fake it till you make it. Yeah? It's pretty good. It's a pretty good line. One thing I pondered whether or not I'd lob this out there at the end, and now I'm going to do it. I always have regrets. So with all this practice, I want to say that I was extremely surprised that the thing that I've been seeking this whole time was with me the whole time. It's not somewhere else. Okay? We'll call it there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So the last thing you said was what I was going to say.
Good. Well, maybe you can talk more about it.
So usually you think about meditation as you're going to get something, but it's not that way. You're actually letting go, and you're returning to something you already have. So the first thing the Buddha said after he got enlightenment was, how wonderful, everybody already has it, but they don't know they already have it, and because of that they suffer. So everybody wants something. Like people even want something from meditation, but there's nothing to get. Of course, that's why it's so damn boring. Oh, I'm going to sit here and look at the floor. Are you kidding me? So, that's the first thing the Buddha said. Because usually we think of, or they'll sell meditation. You'll notice that some traditions sell their product, and it involves getting something. So you pay money to get something, right? Whatever it is, I don't know that much about those things, but since there's nothing to get, there's nothing actually to sell. That's why we ask for donations. You'll hear at the end of my answering these questions, somebody will ask you for a donation. So that's a donation, not a sale. Does that make sense? So are there any questions? Yes.
Good morning. So
Good morning.
This morning, it was really interesting. We have this pending storm coming, right?
Right.
And so doing what I do every morning, I go out, I feed all the animals, I'm doing the goats, chickens, ducks, horses, and I realized this morning, I'm like, it's really peculiar because they are preparing for the storm, right? They have this unique, and I never noticed it before, and I did it thousands of times, but they were acting differently, mm-hmm. right? And then it made me curious, and I said, well, how can we take our practice and prepare for the storm that may pop up inside of us? Now, sometimes, we don't have Doppler radar and we know that it's coming. Right? Sometimes it just pops up. But I don't know, I started having a conversation with one of the goats about it. They didn't give me any response, so I said I knew I was coming today, that I'd probably have a much better response. But yeah, what can we use as part of our practice for those storms that we may know are coming and we can see it, or that just pop up?
Right.
Yeah.
So you probably notice that it's impossible to prepare for anything. Because it's one thing that always shocked me about Zen, and one thing that brought me to Zen was this realization that it's always right now. As Zen Master Sung called it, just now world. And that's all there is. So you can't even give me 1 second of the future when this catastrophe that you're thinking about is going to happen. Later on this afternoon it's going to rain. But we talk like that all the time, right? Like he was just talking about that way, you know. He comes back. Actually, he doesn't come back. He just wakes up right now. Because there's nothing to come back to, because you're already there, you're just not aware of it, right? So you just make yourself aware of just now. Now, that doesn't mean you can't plan, and it doesn't mean you can't expect something, or you do expect something, or you're sorry that you did something in the past. All those things go on. The whole thing is, do not attach to that kind of thinking. There's nothing wrong with that kind of thinking. It's part of being a human being. So even when the goat looks at you, you want to pay attention, because that goat is telling you something. And I've raised goats before, and it's always right now for them. It's my theory. Of course, I can't talk to them because the goats don't talk, but it seems that way, right? And do they want stuff? Of course they do. They want, I forget what goats do. They want food, that's for sure. Or if a male or a female goat is around who's energetic, they want sex, and it just goes on. But it's all like natural. Like he mentioned some mental illnesses. I don't know if goats have those. They might have them if they've been mistreated, right? But I always treated my goats really well. There's no percentage in the other side of that coin. So Zen Master Sung called that moment world. And it's very interesting because you do not have even 1 second of the past. The thing you're worried about all the time that screwed you up so bad doesn't even exist. And the same thing's true of the future. Like you want something, human beings always want stuff, right? And if you want something, that's something that's going to happen in the future, probably. Unless you actually got it here beside you. So you always want something, but it doesn't even exist. But you're thinking about it all the time. And you're talking to yourself about it all the time. But it does not exist. And you don't even know for sure whether it ever will. It's my experience. And when you get to be my age, you know it never will. And that's part of old age, sickness, and death. I notice that you, when you're young, old age, sickness, and death is kind of an abstract concept. We call it impermanence. But then when you get older, it's not abstract at all. There's nothing abstract about it whatsoever, although we talk about it as if it's an abstract concept or something. You know, like, I don't know, what would you say? Phenomenologically, it's real or something, you know. It's complete crap. It's just blah, 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 blah. So what he said was kind of interesting, because what you do is return to the only thing you actually have, which is the floor's brown and I'm talking like an idiot. So there you go. And that's it. And there isn't anything else. So we call that enlightenment. Enlightenment is one of the most misunderstood concepts there is. It just means wake up. And what do you wake up to? Well, the only thing you can't wake up to tomorrow, and you can't wake up to yesterday, so what do you got left? You can't even wake up to his talk because it's gone. Well, it's on tape, but it's already happened. Right? He can't even go back to it himself. He can think about it, but he can't do it. So you're left with this one thing, and that's what Zen Master Sung called the just now world. So that's where we live, but we think that we live somewhere else. And the attachment to that thinking is what creates suffering. Any other questions? Now that I've ruined your day.
Listening to you, Dave, and describing your meditation, I'm struck by where trying to be that way during life is a way not to live, kind of. In other words, where Zen becomes a verb, you know, you're being very Zen. And it's a trap for me, I know, because things happen where I feel really unhappy.
Yeah.
Really unhappy.
Uh-huh.
And since I've meditated, I think that's wrong. Part of me thinks that's wrong.
Yeah.
And so how do I deal with that
Right.
trap and that paradox?
Right. So it's not about right and wrong, it's just being with what is. So I was reading in the news this morning that the Pope met with these hermits that live in the Vatican. I didn't know hermits lived in the Vatican. But anyway, there's these, I don't know what they are, Dominicans or something. So they live right there at the center of Catholicism, but they're hermits. So they don't even know what's going on. They probably never even saw this Pope before, because he's just new, right? He's only been around a couple months. So all this stuff is happening. So it's about detachment. It's not about getting rid of. So there's nothing to get rid of. How your brain reacts to certain things, like you like oak floors or you don't. Is this an oak floor? Yes. So maybe you like it, maybe you don't like it, but you just sit there and look at it. Oak floor, shit. Or oak floor, oh, this is great, man. This is one of the best floors in Rhode Island. Right? So those things are just natural. And you just let what you do is, we say, you let your mind be. So maybe it's doing this or maybe it's doing that. It's always doing something. But that's his job, to do that crap. You just don't attach to it. So that's what I was practicing. When he lets go and returns to his belly, the energy in his belly and his breath and his clear mind, oh no. What he's doing is he's letting go. He's not getting rid of anything, he's just letting go of it. So there's many different ways to talk about meditation, and some of them involve talking about, well, you're going to get something, like we'll even say you're going to find your true self. What does that mean? It's a meaningless statement, but those are just teaching words. So you don't want to attach to the teaching words too, even though they're good. They might be really good teaching words. You don't want to attach to them because they're wrong. Because it's always right now. And there's no place else to go. You can't go even 1 second into the past. It's impossible. And nobody has ever done it, ever. Even Jesus, probably. I don't know that much about Jesus, but could be that he never even experienced that. And you can't go 1 second into the future, right? It's not possible, because it doesn't exist. So that leaves you with right now, and paying attention to your belly going in and out, and saying some phrase to your mind. So those are just techniques. And they're techniques that reveal through experience. I don't care if you believe a word I say. It's just, in Zen it doesn't make any difference because it's not about belief. So you can take these vows. These vows are about direction. Which way is your life pointing? But they don't really tell you very much. So it's about what are you doing right now, and that's all there is. Even if you don't know what you're doing right now, you're still doing it, which is my case most of the time. So that always shocked me, that this whole concept of the moment world really blew my mind, because I used to teach philosophy at university, and I read that and I thought, what the hell? What? It blows up my whole career. It's kind of funny. And I thought it was funny too at the time. So yeah, the trick is not to win anything. Just let your thoughts be. They're natural. They come about through cause and effect. So everybody has a particular kind of thoughts. Like he can think about goats, I can think about goats, but do you think about goats? No. Sometimes. Well, she comes from Poland, so they have a lot of goats in Poland. So and that's what you're stuck with, right? So you might have dogs or goats, or I had chickens and goats and dogs. And then you always, I'm from Kansas, so we always had these coyotes would come up. And the coyotes were always they never got the dogs, because dogs are too clever. But they definitely got the chickens, and they definitely scared the hell out of the goats. But they didn't bother me, because I was in the kitchen making coffee or something. Any other questions?
Hi, my name's Josh. So you mentioned attachments, and you mentioned that we don't get anything, right? This practice isn't about getting.
Right.
Is it about getting rid of? Because I don't think that's true either.
No, it's about letting go of it. Yeah.
What's the difference between letting go of and getting rid of?
I don't know. That's for you to figure out.
Sounds like it's semantics, and it seems like we're talking about the same thing, right?
Right.
So it isn't about getting, but it is about getting rid of. I'd like maybe some clarification on that. To me, it seems like you don't getting rid of really anything either.
Right.
You mentioned, I forget the words that Bobby said from your talk. I always think of it as like contentment with whatever comes, but you said something else that was really good. And I wonder if that's what it is for these attachments too. A contentment with being with what I'm attached to sometimes.
Yeah,
rather
of course.
than
Yeah.
being able to drop. Maybe some things we can let go of completely, but maybe you can talk about this little confusion I have.
Well, it doesn't, then those, your desire and your anger doesn't control you. So it's kind of, we even call it some kind of like freedom, right? So if you let go of, then you're free. If you try to get rid of, that means you don't like it and it still controls you, except in a negative way. And if you want it, that's a positive thing, supposedly, quotes, but then it controls you too. So those two things, like and dislike mind, are always controlling you. If you just let go of them, then they don't control you. It doesn't mean they go away. You're just not attached to them. That's what I would say. I'd use the word attachment. You're just not attached to it anymore. And then you can freely do something else also, if you want. Although that wanting has to be clear too, and that's why we talk about these great vows and stuff. So that's what we call direction in Zen. What's your direction in doing this? So he's not doing it just to appreciate the floor, which is pretty nice. It's not bad. So, but he's doing it to let go so that his life can be clear, so these things don't control him. That's all. So in this moment, something's always happening. Like she's tottering back and forth. See how she's going? I don't like that. Still, God. Right? It's completely meaningless. So what? So most people notice right away, and that one reason that the biggest hindrance is always in Zen is always boredom, right? So everybody wants excitement, right? So you want to hear some exciting jazz piece, or you want, I love Art Pepper, oh God, something, You want something, because regular moment-to-moment life, if you pay very close attention, you'll notice it's kind of boring, even if you have an exciting job. Like Susan, Professor Bernstein here has a really exciting job. No, she doesn't. Yes, she does. No, she doesn't. Yes, she does. So you go like that your whole lifetime, right? And then what are you left with? Well, it's always this moment, and then you die. Great. So that's why we talk about impermanence. Is old age, sickness, and death is impermanence, right? So no matter what happens, for sure, I guarantee you 100%, this is the only thing I can tell you for sure, is if you get old enough, that will happen to you. Oh, you could easily die before. I know, I've almost died, in car accidents probably 3 or 4 times in my life. One time I was driving from, where was I driving? I was driving from Lawrence, Kansas to Lincoln, Nebraska, okay, and it was winter. So I was on this road north of Topeka, and I was going around this curve, and I was in a 51 Volkswagen Bug. And as I went around the curve, it was winter, it started sliding. And here come a 16-wheeler was coming at me. And just as it came at me, my car went like this. And I was backwards. In other words, my car was pointing the same way as the truck when it went by. And then after it went by, it went straight, and I drove on. I thought, oh, good. Right. So what those kind of things remind you of is that this moment is actually kind of, it isn't precious or special or anything, but that's all there is this moment. And no matter what you think you're doing or not doing, that's just thinking. So, and there's nothing wrong with thinking. Your mind is made to do that. It's not evil or anything, although it can definitely produce evil. It's just what your mind is made to do. So what you want to do is let go of that. And that's how you come to find out what you really are, is by letting go of that. Actually, it's enlightening experience when you realize that.
Hey, Sunim.
What happened?
Wanil, Sunim. The camera might be about to cut.
Memory card, it's okay.
It's okay?
The memory card's full.
All right.
What happened?
Memory card is full on the cameras.
Oh.
Danielle's noticing.
Why is that me? Yes, please.
So it seems to me there's like a contradiction in saying, okay, just live in the moment and kind of respond spontaneously, and then, okay, I have these vows or I have these precepts that I have to think about. Because, like, let's say, if I get, if someone is attacking me and I hit them, that's right or correct.
Right,
but if I get mad at someone and hit them, that's, quote unquote,
Wrong,
incorrect.
right,
But to me, both of those things may come naturally, and like,
Right.
so,
Okay.
can you address
Yeah,
that?
I get it. So one way to think about this, and this is also Zen Master Sung Sung, is there's big I want and small I want. So if you read these 4 great vows, those are all big I want, right? So it isn't about not wanting, it's about how big is the want. So some of the things you mentioned, they might be small or they might be big. And that's true of everybody's life, right? So I think that's how I think about that. Big and small. So we take, and it's called the great vow, great means big. Like, it could be the great big vow. I don't know what you would call it. But that's the distinction that's going on there. So it's not about wanting nothing. It's about what kind of wanting is it? Is it big I want or small I want? And if your life is anything like me, it's mostly about small I want. And yet, yeah, please, anybody else, please. It's more interesting if you ask good questions, I'll tell you that. For me, anyway. Yes,
Hello.
please. Hello.
Wanted to ask, if somebody's born and nobody knows who they are and they spend their whole life alone, what value does their life have?
Yeah, so those would be circumstances, right? So everybody's born into some kind of circumstance. So your question for you is, how do you use your circumstances to help the world? That's the question. And for that person, I don't know. That's just kind of an abstract, theoretical question, and I don't know how to answer it. Don't know. But like the Pope meeting with these hermits. So what in the hell are those hermits doing? You know, in Buddhism, we don't have hermits. You go away for periods of time, but you always come back because you have this bigger job, which is saving the world from suffering. Good luck. Yes.
I had a question about if I have complete non-attachment,
Right.
would I still have preferences?
Right.
If I really like oak floors and I can't stand cedar, but I'm not attached, why would I prefer oak? Or I like blueberries, I don't like strawberries. I'm a little confused about that. I know it's not super important, but I'm not there yet, but just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, none of that is wrong. So I would say all of the above. And that doesn't answer your question, of course. But that's life, you know. Everybody has preferences. I have preferences. One of my preferences is not to live in Rhode Island. Here I am. Right? So you just use what you have to do what you do, but don't attach to them. So that preference can exist without you attaching to it. In fact, it happens all the time. Like, maybe I prefer to be drinking Jack Daniels, but now I'm drinking water, you know.
Ooh, wrong cup.
Oh, you got it. See? But that's this moment, right?
But if it's really a preference, isn't there attachment to it?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
You don't attach to the attachment, though. I didn't say that talking about it was going to solve it. That's why we practice, actually, because the explanations are not satisfactory. Even the really good explanations are not satisfactory. But there's a kind of like, for me, there's a hierarchy of explanations. And certain explanations just completely elude me, like the one about God and what happens. Oh, last week, was it last Thursday? We were all supposed to go to heaven, but we didn't, right? No. But that idea that we're going to be transported up to heaven is only from the 1830s. So it isn't very old. It's only about not even 5 years short of 200 years old, that idea. And it's not in the Bible anywhere. And they use passages in the Bible, as you probably all know, to explain things by using the passage out of context. So if you look at all, I forget what they are. I was reading some scholar about the, what's that called when you go?
Rapture.
The rapture. All right. So this is a biblical scholar that studies the rapture, right? So there's 4 main biblical passages that explain the rapture or talk about it. And if you look at them closely in context, they're not talking about that at all, but they're pulled out of context to explain that. So we do that all the time in our life. We pull things out of context to explain stuff because we want to have an explanation. But, yeah, so what? Yeah, please.
So my question is about forgiveness.
Yes?
How do you practice forgiveness when you're holding on to something so heavy that is seems unforgivable?
Right. Yeah, that happens all the time. Right. Well, I just practice. Wanting to get rid of it is not going to get rid of it. In fact, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but wanting something is probably going to make it stronger. So you can't forgive somebody, and then that feeling will just get stronger. It can just get stronger and stronger and stronger. On the other hand, it can just naturally go away. Like, I'm sure I'm angry at people that I don't even remember their names, so it kind of goes away, after a while. Or you can just practice. So when you practice, one thing you're doing when you do these techniques, like the techniques he mentioned, is you're letting go of an idea. So in your mind, you'll have some kind of idea, and you'll be either attached to it or not attached to it. You'll either like it or you won't like it, and then we're in that all the time, right? But if you use these techniques, and the techniques are really, they are sickeningly boring. Boy, they're boring. Like if you ever practice very much, like one reason people, like, I don't know, I've done many of these 90-day retreats. There's nothing more boring in your life than that. And the reason you can't do it is because it's too boring. But it's supposed to be boring. That's its job, is to be boring. So you want to set yourself up for a boring situation, because a boring situation is actually a liberating situation, although we don't think about it that way, but it actually is. But you won't experience it unless you get really bored. So that stuff he told you, it takes you less than 30 seconds to learn how to meditate, and then you spend the rest of your life being bored by it. Oh, God. Great. And that's why it's so hard, So imagine, okay, I'm with the Buddha. I'm going to go sit underneath a tree for 6 years. Are you kidding me? Or I don't know if you've ever been to China, but if you go to mainland China, you go to northern Guangdong province, there's Bodhidharma's cave, right? So he sat in this cave for 9 years. And the first time I went there, I thought, are you kidding me? 9 years sitting in this shithole? Are you kidding? But that's just what it was supposed to do. That's what it's for. It's a kind of technique. It's not very exciting. It's not like dancing or reciting exotic passages out of exotic texts or something. It's just plain boring. But what you're doing is you're looking inside at yourself, and it allows you to let go. That's the way I say it. It allows that to happen. Because usually we're very attached to our ideas. Like some people don't even like their wife. I can't believe that, but it happens, I've heard.
I think I have to stand here. Right. Thank you very much for your talks. And just a few announcements. Oh, here we go. So first of all, on Wednesday, we're going to have Kongan interviews with Kwan Hang Sunim during practice. And then this afternoon, we're going to have art club with Dime. That's going to take place in the pagoda. And you don't need your own supplies, or you don't actually need to know how to do any kind of art. Just show up and enjoy. We have a number of retreats open for registration. The next one is going to be Christian Buddhist retreat on November 15th. Then we have a 7-day YMJJ with Zen Master Songhyang, Bobby Rhodes, the head of our school. And then we have our long retreat at the monastery starting in January. You can find more information for that online. We also have Buddha's Enlightenment Day coming up, and we will have a precept ceremony. If you are interested in taking precepts, please speak to one of our co-guiding teachers, Kwon Hang Sunim or Zen Master Dae Kwang. And the deadline for 5 precepts is November 17th. Last but not least, Josh is right here. Josh, you still need help with garlic. Josh needs a little bit of help processing all the garlic we've grown so we can enjoy it throughout the winter. So if you have, an hour or 2, please meet Josh in the kitchen. And I will just end there. As usual, we'll have refreshments. Gift shop will be open. I will see you soon. Thank you.